Before we begin, I want you to ask yourself one question. How much of your life has been shaped by a story you keep repeating in your mind? A story about failure, a story about rejection, a story about what someone did to you, a story about what went wrong. Most people do not realize that they are not suffering because of the event itself anymore. They are suffering because they continue to relive it every single day through their thoughts, emotions, and inner conversations. Tonight, something can change because the moment you stop identifying with the old story, you step into the power to create a new reality. You are not here to remain trapped in memories. You are not here to keep carrying pain as your identity. You are here to awaken to the truth that your inner world is shaping everything around you. And if you can change the story within, you can change the life you experience without. So as you listen to this message, do not listen as the old version of yourself. Listen as the person you are becoming, because your future does not have to look like your past. There are millions of people walking through life carrying invisible chains, and those chains are not attached to their future. They are attached to their memory. Every day they wake up and unconsciously replay the same emotional stories inside their mind. They remember what failed, who betrayed them, what they lost, what went wrong, and how life disappointed them. And without realizing it, they keep reliving the same reality emotionally. The mind becomes trapped in repetition, and whatever is repeated with feeling begins to feel permanent. This is why many people cannot move forward. Their body may be in the present, but their consciousness is still living in the past. The greatest mistake most people make is believing that the past has power on its own. The truth is, the past only continues to influence your life because you continue to give it energy, attention, emotion, and identity. Every time you tell the same painful story, you reactivate it. Every time you emotionally relive an old wound, you water it like a seed. Most people think they are simply remembering, but in reality, they are rehearsing limitation. They are strengthening an old identity over and over again until it becomes their automatic state of being. Think about how often people introduce themselves through pain. They say things like, "I've always struggled. People always leave me. Nothing ever works out for me. I've been through too much." These are not just harmless sentences. These are declarations of identity. The subconscious mind accepts whatever you repeatedly impress upon it with feeling. It does not question whether the story is empowering or destructive. It simply accepts repetition as truth and begins expressing it outwardly through circumstances, reactions, and experiences. That is why two people can experience similar situations but create completely different lives afterward. One person allows the experience to become their identity, while the other decides that the experience will not define them. One keeps repeating the story of pain, while the other begins constructing a new internal story. Eventually, the person who changes internally begins seeing different results externally, not because the world randomly favored them, but because they stopped emotionally anchoring themselves to the old reality. Most people do not understand the creative power of inner conversation. The conversations you have within yourself every day are shaping your emotional state, your expectations, your confidence, and your assumptions about life. If your inner world is constantly repeating stories of rejection, fear, and disappointment, then your outer world eventually begins reflecting the same pattern. Life starts mirroring the dominant emotional state you continue to occupy. This is why changing external circumstances without changing the inner story rarely creates lasting transformation. The old story simply recreates itself in a different form. If someone has spent years believing they are unlucky, abandoned, or unworthy, they may unconsciously continue attracting situations that reinforce that belief. Why? Because the subconscious mind always seeks consistency with the identity you have accepted. Your assumptions quietly direct your perception, reactions, decisions, and energy. This is why the story you repeatedly tell yourself matters so much. It becomes the lens through which you experience reality. But here is the beautiful truth. The moment you stop feeding the old story, it begins losing power. A memory cannot control you without your emotional participation. The past cannot dominate your future unless you continue carrying it as your identity. You were never meant to worship old pain for the rest of your life. You were never created to endlessly repeat stories that weaken your spirit and limit your vision. There comes a moment when you must decide that the old version of yourself no longer deserves center stage in your mind. You must become willing to release the emotional addiction to suffering. And yes, many people become unconsciously addicted to repeating painful stories because it becomes familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar transformation. But growth begins the moment you choose a new internal reality over an old emotional habit. You do not change your life by fighting the past. You change your life by no longer identifying with it. Stop introducing yourself through what hurt you. Stop defining yourself by what failed. Stop building your future around old memories. Instead, begin asking yourself a new question. Who would I become if I stopped repeating the old story? That question has the power to change everything. Because the moment you stop emotionally rehearsing limitation, you create space for a new identity to emerge. You begin thinking differently, feeling differently, expecting differently, and imagining differently. And slowly, reality begins reorganizing itself around your new state of consciousness. Your future is not waiting for you to repeat the past more perfectly. Your future is waiting for you to finally release it. So let the old story end here. Let the cycle of emotional repetition end here. The pain may have happened, but it does not have to become your permanent identity. You can decide today that your mind will no longer be a museum of suffering. It will become a place of creation, vision, possibility, and transformation. Because your past only survives when you continue telling its story. And the moment you stop repeating it, a completely new life can begin. One of the greatest truths you can ever understand is that your life will always move in the direction of the identity you accept as true. Long before circumstances change outwardly, something first changes inwardly. Every action, reaction, belief, expectation, and emotional pattern comes from the person you believe yourself to be. This is why lasting transformation never begins with the outside world. It begins with identity. The moment you see yourself differently, you start thinking differently. You start feeling differently. You begin expecting different outcomes from life. And eventually, the outer world starts reflecting the inner version of yourself you have accepted. Most people try to change their lives while remaining emotionally loyal to the same old identity. They want abundance while still identifying as someone who lacks. They want love while secretly believing they are unworthy. They want confidence while continuously repeating stories of failure inside their mind. But life cannot consistently reflect a reality that contradicts your dominant self-concept. Your subconscious mind always works to prove your identity true. If deep down you believe you are broken, overlooked, unlucky, or limited, then your thoughts, emotions, decisions, and expectations will unconsciously align with that belief. This is why changing your identity is not motivational advice. It is a creative law of consciousness. The version of yourself you continuously assume yourself to be becomes the blueprint your reality follows. The outer world is always responding to your inner assumption of self. Many people spend years identifying with pain they should have released long ago. They continue introducing themselves through what happened to them. They define themselves by heartbreak, failure, rejection, mistakes, or disappointment. Without realizing it, they carry an old self-image into every new opportunity. Even when life presents them with something beautiful, they struggle to receive it because their identity still belongs to the past. The mind always seeks evidence that confirms the story it already believes. That is why you must become bold enough to assume a completely new identity immediately, not someday in the future, not after external proof appears, but now. You must stop waiting for the world to give you permission to become new. The transformation begins the moment you decide internally, I am no longer that person. The old version of you may have struggled, feared, doubted, or suffered, but you do not have to carry that identity forever. You can choose a new state of being right now. You can choose to become someone who is confident, loved, successful, peaceful, abundant, valued, and powerful. The decision happens within first. This does not mean pretending the past never existed. It means refusing to let the past define your future identity. It means understanding that your awareness is greater than any circumstance you experienced. The moment you emotionally detach from the old self-image, a new reality begins forming around you. Think about how powerful this truly is. If your identity shapes your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your feelings, and your feelings shape your actions and expectations, then changing your identity changes the entire direction of your life. Everything begins with self-concept. The world responds to who you believe yourself to be. If someone deeply assumes they are valuable, they naturally think, speak, and move differently. They expect respect. They expect opportunities. They expect good things to happen. But someone who identifies with rejection unconsciously anticipates disappointment, even when nothing has gone wrong yet. The outer behavior is simply reflecting the inner identity. This is why you cannot keep saying, I'll believe I'm successful when success comes. That approach keeps your power dependent on circumstances. True transformation happens when you internally become the person first. You must think from the identity you desire, not toward it. You must emotionally occupy the state before external evidence appears. The most powerful people in the world are not necessarily the most talented. Often, they are simply the people who accepted a greater identity for themselves and refused to abandon it. They saw themselves differently before the world did. They remained faithful to an inner vision, even when outer conditions looked opposite. That same power exists within you. The moment you assume a new identity, your inner conversations begin changing. Your posture changes. Your energy changes. Your expectations shift. You stop reacting to life as the old version of yourself. Instead, you begin responding from a higher awareness. Little by little, reality starts conforming to your new state of consciousness. This is why persistence matters. You cannot return to the old identity every time circumstances challenge you. The outer world may temporarily reflect old assumptions, but if you remain loyal to the new version of yourself internally, reality must eventually catch up. Life always mirrors the dominant state you persist in emotionally. So stop waiting for transformation to happen outside you first. Become transformed within now. See yourself differently now. Speak to yourself differently now. Expect differently now. Imagine differently now. Do not ask whether you deserve a new identity. Decide that you do. Because the person you choose to be internally today will quietly shape the experiences you live tomorrow. And once you truly understand this, you will never again underestimate the power of self-concept. A new life does not begin when circumstances change. A new life begins the moment you do. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you are having conversations within yourself. silent conversations, invisible conversations, conversations that nobody else can hear, but conversations that are shaping your entire reality. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, there is a voice within you constantly speaking, interpreting, imagining, reacting, expecting, and defining your life. And most people underestimate the power of these inner conversations because they believe reality is created only by external actions. But long before something appears outwardly, it is first accepted inwardly. Your inner dialogue is not random mental noise, it is creative power. The words you repeatedly say to yourself become assumptions. Assumptions become emotional states. Emotional states influence your behavior, your reactions, your energy, and your expectations. Eventually, the outer world begins reflecting the inner atmosphere you continuously live in. This is why people often experience the same patterns over and over again. They may change locations, relationships, jobs, or environments, but their internal conversations remain the same. And because the inner story remains unchanged, life keeps reproducing similar experiences externally. A person who constantly says internally, "Nobody respects me," will unconsciously look for evidence to confirm that belief. They may become defensive, insecure, emotionally guarded, or overly sensitive. Their assumptions begin influencing the way they interpret reality. Another person who deeply believes, "I am valued and appreciated," moves through life differently. Their energy changes, their reactions change, their expectations change. Even before circumstances fully shift, their consciousness has already changed. This is why your inner conversations matter far more than temporary external appearances. Most people spend years speaking against the life they desire without even realizing it. They want peace, but internally they rehearse anxiety. They want love, but internally they replay rejection. They want abundance, but internally they constantly repeat stories of limitation and struggle. Then they wonder why life keeps reflecting the very experiences they wish to escape. Your subconscious mind listens carefully to your repeated internal speech. It absorbs what you emotionally persist in. It accepts repeated inner dialogue as instruction. And once an assumption becomes deeply impressed within you, it begins expressing itself outwardly through your experiences. This is why you must become conscious of what you are mentally agreeing with every day. Listen to your inner voice carefully. Does it constantly criticize you? Does it remind you of past failures? Does it predict disappointment before anything even happens? Does it assume rejection, lack, or struggle? If so, then those inner conversations are quietly shaping the circumstances you continue to experience. The outer world is often nothing more than a reflection of the conversations happening within consciousness. This does not mean every single event is consciously chosen in a simple way. But it does mean your dominant state of being influences the reality you continuously encounter. Your assumptions become filters through which you experience life. What you expect emotionally, you begin noticing more frequently. What you fear internally, you often unknowingly prepare yourself to experience. Many people unknowingly live in mental arguments. They replay what they should have said. They imagine conflict. They rehearse disappointment. They mentally defend themselves against situations that have not even happened yet. And all of this creates emotional states that shape their daily experience. The mind cannot continuously entertain fear without affecting perception and behavior. But imagine if you deliberately changed the conversation. Imagine waking up and internally hearing, "Everything is working in my favor. I am worthy of love and success. Life supports me. Opportunities flow toward me. I am becoming greater every day." Those inner conversations begin creating a completely different emotional atmosphere within you. And over time, your outer experience starts aligning with that new state. Transformation always begins invisibly first. This is why guarding your inner speech is one of the most powerful things you can ever do. Because even when nobody else hears your thoughts, your subconscious hears them. Your nervous system responds to them. Your emotions absorb them. And eventually your life reflects them. The problem is not that most people speak negatively occasionally. The problem is persistence. Repeated inner speech creates identity. Identity creates expectations. Expectations influence reality. If you continuously speak defeat internally, you begin emotionally living as someone defeated. But if you persistently speak from confidence, peace, abundance, and possibility, you gradually become emotionally aligned with those states. You must stop treating your inner world casually. Your mind is not a storage room for fear and limitation. It is a creative center. Every thought repeated with emotion becomes a seed planted within consciousness. And the seeds you plant internally eventually grow outwardly into experiences. This is why changing your life requires changing your inner conversations first. External effort alone cannot permanently override an unchanged self concept. The outer world may temporarily shift, but without internal transformation, old patterns eventually return. Lasting change happens when the internal dialogue changes consistently. Speak to yourself as the person you desire to become. If you desire peace, internally speak peace. If you desire abundance, internally speak abundance. If you desire confidence, internally speak confidence. If you desire love, internally speak love. Stop using your mind to repeat what weakens you. Stop rehearsing limitation. Stop emotionally feeding stories that keep you trapped in old realities. Because every moment, your inner conversations are shaping the world you experience. And the moment you consciously change the conversation within, the circumstances around you begin changing too. One of the greatest misunderstandings people have about transformation is believing that facts are more powerful than feelings. Most people spend their lives reacting to visible circumstances, believing that reality is fixed because it looks solid, logical, and undeniable. They look at their bank account, relationships, failures, disappointments, or current conditions and assume those facts have the final word over their future. But what they fail to understand is that facts are often temporary reflections of past states of consciousness, while feelings are the forces that shape what comes next. The outer world is constantly changing because consciousness is constantly changing. What you consistently feel to be true within yourself eventually becomes the reality you experience outwardly. This is why two people can stand in the same situation yet emotionally experience life completely differently. One person sees possibility while another sees limitation. One person expects miracles while another expects disappointment. The difference is not merely circumstance. It is state of consciousness. Most people are controlled by appearances because they have been conditioned to believe only what they can physically see. If money is low, they immediately feel poor. If someone leaves them, they immediately feel abandoned. If a challenge appears, they immediately feel defeated. In other words, they allow facts to determine their emotional state. But true inner power begins when you stop allowing temporary appearances to control your inner feeling. Your feeling state is not supposed to be enslaved by the outer world. Your feeling state is supposed to direct it. This is why emotions are deeply creative. Whatever feeling you continuously return to becomes your dominant vibration, your dominant assumption, your dominant identity. And life eventually mirrors that emotional persistence. If someone constantly feels unworthy, life often reflects situations that reinforce that feeling. If someone continuously feels secure, loved, successful, or abundant internally, reality slowly reorganizes around those assumptions. The subconscious mind responds more to feeling than to words alone. You can repeat positive affirmations all day long, but if your dominant emotional state remains fear, doubt, or hopelessness, the deeper impression within consciousness remains unchanged. Feeling is what gives life to thought. Emotion is what impresses belief upon the subconscious mind. That is why people who emotionally dwell in fear often manifest more situations that intensify fear. And people who emotionally dwell in confidence begin attracting experiences that strengthen confidence. The feeling becomes the magnet. The feeling becomes the atmosphere from which reality grows. Many people wait for external evidence before allowing themselves to feel differently. They say, I'll feel successful when I see success. I'll feel loved when someone chooses me. I'll feel secure when my problems disappear. But this way of living keeps them emotionally trapped in reaction. They remain dependent on circumstances to create emotions, instead of understanding that emotions themselves influence future circumstances. The real shift happens when you decide to feel differently before the evidence arrives. This requires faith in the unseen. It requires emotional discipline. It requires the willingness to internally embody the state you desire, even while outer conditions still appear unchanged. That is not delusion. That is creative consciousness. Because every visible reality once existed invisibly first. Think about the moments in your life when something wonderful happened unexpectedly. Before the physical manifestation occurred, there was often a subtle emotional shift first: hope, expectation, belief, excitement, certainty, peace. Likewise, when life feels heavy and repetitive, it is often because the emotional state being carried internally has remained unchanged for too long. Feelings create momentum. If you wake up every day emotionally rehearsing defeat, stress, fear, and limitation, you strengthen those states within yourself. But if you deliberately begin cultivating gratitude, peace, confidence, abundance, and certainty, you begin shifting your entire energetic relationship with reality. Slowly, your perception changes, your reactions change, your expectations change. Opportunities that once felt invisible begin appearing. This is why protecting your emotional state matters so much. The world constantly tries to convince you that appearances are permanent. But appearances are only echoes of previous assumptions. Facts are not final unless you continue emotionally agreeing with them. A person may currently face financial difficulty, but if they internally continue feeling abundant, capable, and supported, they are planting the emotional seeds for a different future. Another person may already possess wealth externally, but live in constant fear and scarcity emotionally. Eventually, their inner feeling begins influencing their outer experience too. The inner world always precedes the outer world. You must stop worshipping facts more than your own consciousness. Facts change, circumstances shift, situations evolve, but the feelings you consistently nurture within yourself quietly shape the direction your life moves toward. So instead of asking, what do the facts say? Begin asking, what am I consistently feeling? Are you feeling empowered or powerless? Are you feeling worthy or rejected? Are you feeling hopeful or defeated? Are you emotionally living in possibility or limitation? Because your emotional home eventually becomes your lived reality. Do not wait for the outer world to hand you permission to feel peace, abundance, love, or confidence. Choose those states within now. Persist in them. Protect them. Nourish them daily. The world may show you temporary facts, but your feelings determine what reality becomes permanent. And once you truly understand this, you stop being controlled by appearances and start becoming the conscious creator of your life experience. Most people spend their lives focused on the problem instead of the solution, on the struggle instead of the outcome, on the present circumstances instead of the future they desire. They wake up every day emotionally attached to what is happening now, and because of that, they continue recreating the same reality again and again. They think from the place of lack, fear, disappointment, and limitation. Then they wonder why life refuses to change. What they fail to understand is that transformation begins the moment you stop living from the problem and start living from the desired ending. To live from the desired ending means mentally and emotionally occupying the state of the person who already has what they desire. It means thinking from fulfillment rather than toward it. Most people are always trying to get something. They are trying to get success, trying to get love, trying to get peace, trying to get abundance. But this mental approach keeps them conscious of not having it. The focus remains on absence, and whatever you continuously focus on emotionally becomes strengthened within your awareness. The secret is not to constantly chase the outcome mentally. The secret is to internally become the version of yourself for whom the desire is already fulfilled. This changes everything. When someone lives from the desired ending, they no longer react to temporary appearances with panic or hopelessness. Their inner state is no longer controlled by current conditions because their consciousness is anchored in the reality they have already accepted internally. They understand that the outer world is often delayed evidence of previous assumptions. Instead of obsessing over what is visible now, they remain faithful to the inner vision of what is coming. Most people live emotionally trapped in the middle of the story. They constantly ask, how will this happen? When will it happen? What if it never happens? These questions keep the mind focused on uncertainty and delay. But when you truly live from the end, you stop mentally chasing, you stop forcing, you stop doubting every step. There is a quiet confidence that begins growing within you because emotionally you have already accepted the outcome. Think about how differently you would feel if you truly believed your desire was already guaranteed. If you knew with absolute certainty that your success, healing, love, abundance, or breakthrough was already unfolding, your entire emotional state would change. You would think differently. You would walk differently. You would react differently to challenges. Fear would lose much of its power over you because inwardly the ending would already feel secure. This is why imagination is so powerful. The mind responds deeply to repeated emotional imagery. When you consistently imagine yourself already living the fulfilled reality, you begin impressing that state upon your subconscious mind. Over time, the inner experience starts feeling natural. And once something feels natural internally, reality begins moving in that direction externally. Most people only believe what they can physically see. But conscious creation requires believing in the unseen before it becomes visible. Every great transformation first existed as an inner assumption before it appeared in the outer world. The visible reality is always catching up to the invisible state held within consciousness. Living from the desired ending does not mean ignoring responsibilities or pretending challenges do not exist. It means refusing to emotionally surrender to temporary appearances. It means maintaining inward faith even when external evidence has not fully appeared yet. It means understanding that your present circumstances do not define your final outcome. There is tremendous power in emotional persistence. When you continue returning mentally to the fulfilled state, you gradually weaken the emotional grip of the old reality. Fear loses authority. Doubt begins fading. Confidence grows naturally because your consciousness is no longer centered on limitation. Instead, your inner world becomes aligned with fulfillment. This is why you must guard your imagination carefully. What you repeatedly imagine with feeling becomes familiar to the subconscious mind. If you constantly imagine failure, rejection, loss, or disappointment, you emotionally condition yourself toward those experiences. But if you repeatedly imagine success, peace, abundance, love, and victory, you begin internally aligning with those realities instead. The future you desire must become emotionally believable within you before it fully manifests around you. You cannot continuously live emotionally in defeat while expecting a victorious reality to appear. Your dominant state matters. Your inner assumptions matter. Your emotional identity matters. So stop asking life to convince you first. Stop waiting for perfect evidence before allowing yourself to believe in a greater future. Begin now. Live now from the ending you desire. If you desire peace, feel peace now. If you desire abundance, think from abundance now. If you desire love, embody love now. If you desire success, move through life with the mindset of success now. Do not postpone your inner transformation until circumstances improve. Circumstances often improve because the inner transformation happened first. Your imagination is not meaningless fantasy. It is the doorway to a new reality. And the more faithfully you return to the fulfilled state internally, the more naturally life begins reorganizing itself externally. One day, the reality you once imagined will become your normal experience. What once felt distant will feel natural. What once seemed impossible will feel ordinary. And you will realize that the turning point was not when circumstances changed outwardly. The turning point was the moment you decided to live from the desired ending within yourself first. From this day forward, stop introducing yourself through your wounds. Stop speaking more passionately about your pain than your potential. The past may have shaped a chapter of your life, but it does not have the authority to define the rest of your story unless you keep giving it permission. You have the power to choose a new assumption, a new identity, a new inner conversation, a new future. The moment you stop emotionally replaying what hurt you, you begin creating space for what can heal you. And the moment you persist in a new story with faith, emotion, and certainty, reality begins to move in ways you cannot yet see. Remember this: life responds to the story you consistently tell yourself. So stop telling the story of defeat. Stop telling the story of limitation. Stop telling the story of what happened. And begin telling the story of who you have decided to become. Because a new life begins the moment a new story is believed. Thank you so much for listening and spending this time with me today. If this message touched your heart in any way, carry it with you beyond this moment. Remember, you are not bound by your past, your circumstances, or the opinions of others. The power to transform your life begins within you. Keep believing, keep imagining, keep becoming. And never forget, the story you choose today can change your entire tomorrow. Thank you, and may your new story lead you to a life greater than you ever imagined.